Hello, everybody. Welcome to the CNC with Dave Gatton show. I'm your host, Dave Gatton, and probably most of you already knew that. I've got my buddy Javi here with me again tonight, and he's going to be helping me keep an eye on the chat and possibly showing off some accessories because we're going to be talking about CNC accessories tonight.
A favorite subject of mine.
Yeah. That was kind of by request. I had asked folks to put down in the comments, not last week because I didn't do a show last week, but week before. And I had some comments, and I also got some Facebook messages and stuff like that saying they'd like to see us do the CNC accessory. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I think we got lots to talk about, actually, because there's a lot of things. Javi and I were talking earlier today, and some of the things he reminded me of, I hadn't thought of, and I even have them myself. So, but I've got a list here, and we're going to go through. And of course, anybody wants to add anything as we go, just put it over there in the chat. I wanted to, I guess the big news this week, just a couple of things before we get started. The big news this week, I guess, is that the newest upgrade version for VCarve Pro and Expire as well, I think they're both on 9.5. I know the VCarve Pro is 9.5. I think that's what Aspire is on. I think they're on the same number now. But I've already got mine. I got it yesterday or the day before. I can't remember which. And I've looked at it. I haven't really done much with it as far as programming anything, but I have tried to watch a couple of the videos. I got to spend some more time. But it looks like a lot of really cool new features or enhanced features, I should say, that they're doing with VCarve Pro. And one of the ones that I'm probably most excited about is they've really made the way to do stuff on a rotary axis a lot easier. And even the simulation, you can now see it in the 3D form instead of just flat like you could before. And anyway, that they've made a lot of improvements with that. So hopefully in the coming weeks, we'll be talking about that kind of stuff more, and maybe have somebody on here that can either myself or anybody that wants to volunteer to do some demos with a rotary axis using those new features. So anyway, that's pretty cool. So if you haven't already got that, check it out. The way it was kind of weird because I couldn't find it at first. I opened up my VCarve Pro, which was at the time 9.015, I think. And I just went to that little help thing and hit check for updates. And it says, oh, you're on the current version. And I didn't notice until I saw somebody posted on Facebook that over in the upper right-hand corner, which you got to be looking for it, it says that 9.5 is available. And then you click on that and go to the portal or whatever they call that. And I was able to get it. But yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about that. And like I said, we'll be talking about that in some upcoming shows, I'm sure. Let's do Javi, let's do a quick shout out for folks out there too.
Sure, absolutely. Let's see. What we have out here are Andrew Haig, Becca Miller, David Mitchell, Del Ludlam, Jim Bashirs, Ed Newman, Frankie CNC, Grant Clark, Steve Nealon, Jerry Bonifield, Jerry Brown, Keith Allen, Leo Steger, Lyle Foyt, Raymond Dixon, Rob Schuster, Sean Draper, and Woodshop Dog. At least the ones that I can see.
Yep.
Evening all.
I think you pretty much hit all the ones that I can see as well. So welcome, everybody. Glad you're here. Another thing I want to mention real quick, because we get busy talking about this other stuff, and I may forget at the end. But I thought I would mention this, and I can't even see on the thing I'm looking at over here. But I was looking at something the other day, and it suddenly dawned on me that I am sneaking up on 30,000 subscribers. And you know, for me, the subscriber thing has never been a big deal to me. They kind of come as, you know, you put out videos and stuff like that. You know, they kind of come and go, some of them, or whatever. And I've never really paid much attention to it. But I did notice that I don't even know, somebody, if maybe y'all can look, maybe it shows how many I've got right now. I think it's 29, 8, 40.
Let's see what we got here.
I don't remember exactly what it is, but anyway, it's getting sneaking right on up there to 30,000. Now, the reason I mention this is a lot of folks, you know, a lot of the YouTube folks, when they reach a certain milestone, whether it be 1,000 subscribers or
you're 112 away. Sorry, 152 away. Okay. You're 29,848.
Okay, 848. Okay. But anyway, you know, a lot of these folks will do these giveaways to kind of help, you know, give back for, you know, the subscribers and stuff like that. And I've just never done that. Because I do lots of giveaways and stuff anyway, really for no apparent reason. I just give stuff away when I feel like it. But I thought, since this might be the last big YouTube milestone that I ever make, because I may not live long enough to hit 35 or 40 or whatever, but I thought I might do a giveaway after that 30,000 hits. And based on, I think, my current subscriber rate, it may still be a month or two off, because like I said, I don't get a whole lot of subscribers just simply because doing these shows, they're not as popular as regular YouTube videos. And I don't, you know, put out a video like I used to. I used to put out, you know, 2 or 3 a month, and now I put out maybe one every 2 or 3 months or something like that. But anyway, I thought I would mention that so y'all can be thinking about that, and you'll want to be well, one, you want to be a subscriber, because when I do the giveaway, and when I do a giveaway, what I'm thinking is I'm not going to just give away one thing. I'm going to give away several things. So give lots of folks opportunities to win some stuff. So you'll be looking, you know, if you're not already subscribed, you should subscribe and hit the little bell so you get the notifications, because I'll probably be putting out some kind of a video announcing the giveaway, what the rules are as far as sign up to win the prizes and stuff like that. So anywho, I just thought I'd mention that. And it's been a little while since I've done a giveaway. It's been a month or so anyway, I guess. So it'll be time to do one again soon. That's all I had. Javi, did you want to talk about anything else before we get started on the CNC accessories?
No, I can't think of anything at the moment. Be sure to visit our channels. Dave Gatton at YouTube, Javi's Woodshop in YouTube, and we thank you for your support as always.
Absolutely, absolutely. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys. So appreciate every one of you. All right, well, let's get started talking about CNC accessories. And first, like I said, Javi and I talked earlier today. And Javi, what is your definition of a CNC accessory? What would be?
I would say it's a CNC accessory for me is something that is not necessary to the basic function of the CNC, but it enhances or adds to the functionality, makes life a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, you know, anybody that's followed me for more than just a few years will know that the Sidewinder that I used to have in my shop, I've done several project videos and stuff using that Machine. It was the basic machine. It had no limit switches, no e-stop, no homing switches, not even wire management, really. I just had the cables. You know, the machine wasn't that big. It had a 40 by 26 cutting area. So I had it arranged where the wires would just kind of move around, but they were always out of the way. So it was about as basic as you can get. I mean, I used a piece of paper to touch off the Z. And I did that for years. I mean, I just recently, well, a few months ago, I guess, took that machine apart and then put a GarageWorks 4x4 out there. But I mean, I'd had that machine either in my garage or around back in my shop for about 10 years, I guess. So, and there's nothing wrong with running a stripped down version of a CNC. I mean, you know, depending on what you're cutting, you may never need any fancy bells and whistles and stuff like that. So, but anyway, I would think that, you know, I've got a list here, and as I was looking at this list, one thing that probably pretty much everybody is going to think of once they get their machine built and they've got it, you know, maybe they've done the calibration or whatever, and they're getting ready to start cutting. As soon as you start cutting and that dust starts flying everywhere, probably one of the first things you're going to go is, I might ought to think about some kind of dust collection or a dust shoe, or, you know, hook it up with a shop vac, or, you know, something to, otherwise it's going to make a mess. And, you know, it does. So that would probably be one of the first things I would think people that start out, or, you know, as soon as they start cutting stuff, they're going to try to figure out how they want to control the dust. And again, out there in the shop, when I was running that old machine, I had a kind of a homemade dust shoe with just some of that clear plastic stuff that I got from McMaster. I cut it out of some, you know, cheap pine and had it hooked up with my shop vac. Just had bought an extra length of shop vac hose and ran it up, and that worked pretty good. You know, that's one way of doing it. Of course, you know, you can go a more expensive way, I guess, and get you know, one of those Harbor Freight dust collection things that you put in the corner or something. You know, but you don't have to. You could get by with a shop vac. Another method, and Javi's kind of got one right there behind him. Another method of helping to control dust as well as sound is an enclosure. That's kind of a handy CNC accessory, I would say, is some kind of an enclosure. Like I said, Javi's.
Yeah, let me make some noise so the camera goes on. Yeah, we have here an enclosure, 2 doors, and I'm telling you, the decibel levels, you're probably talking easily 30-40 decibel, if not more. But the best part is the dust. I mean, this is my office and my computer room. At most, when I open the doors, a little bit of sawdust drops, but I don't get anything flying in the air or nothing like that.
Yeah, and like I said, yours works great for sound as well as. I mean, I've been in Hangouts with Javi, and he's had the thing running back there, and with the door closed, you can still have a conversation. So that's another advantage to an enclosure. For the longest time, again, I keep going back to my old CNC. I had some scrap. Actually, where I worked, they were going to throw it out. They had some 1/8 inch Lexan, big pieces of it, and they were going to throw it out. It was scratched up and stuff like that. And I said, "Well, hey, can I have it?" And he said, "Yeah." So I brought it home, cut it up, and I just took like 2x4s and cut those down into like 2x2s and made a little frame and screwed the pieces of Lexan. I'm sure y'all can go back some of those older videos and see it. But mine, it wasn't a complete enclosure. It was just 3 sides. I had 2 panels on each side, and then I had one big panel across the back, and they just kind of hooked to each other to prop themselves up. And it was more to, like I said, it would help with the dust, but it would just keep the dust contained right there. If I was going to run something that was really messy and going to throw a lot of stuff out the front, I would just take a piece of plywood or a piece of cardboard and prop it up the front, and I'd let it go and make a mess, and then I could just pull that down and take the shop vac and vacuum it up. So that's another thing you can do. But if you can, if you've got a small enough machine and you can do the full enclosure deal, which I know a lot of folks that, doing the Gattons, that's maybe not an option because they're building them so big. But that helps not only with the dust, but also the sound. So Mr. Miter Mike has joined us. Thank you, Mike, for coming on here, buddy. I didn't know if you were going to be around or not, but
hey, Mike.
Yeah, I had to drop the pain in the butt off at a bunch of friends' house. So, or the prince, as we call them inside.
Ah, okay. But okay, well, I knew you had asked me if I was having a show tonight, so I thought, well, maybe that means you're going to watch. I'll send you a link if you want to come on with us. We're talking about CNC accessories, which we have defined as things that you don't necessarily have to run a CNC, but things that are kind of nice to have if you have them. Okay, so we've talked about the enclosures, the dust cloud. Like I said, that's probably the number one thing is when you start cutting with a CNC, you're going to find that dust gets everywhere. It's a messy thing, especially if you're using a router that blows the air down, because as it cuts, it's that router's blowing it, which, it's designed to do that for when you're hand routing. It keeps your sight clear, but when it's on a CNC machine, it just blows it and gets it, especially if it's MDF or whatever, it gets it all up in the air. So can make a big mess.
Now, do you guys use vacuums while it's in an enclosure, or you do not?
Well, when you say vacuum, are you talking about just like a shop vac or something?
Yeah, like a shop vac or.
The thing about the shop vac is and I always see you can always tell when somebody's brand new at CNC is because they'll post a video and you see the wand of the shop vac following the thing around. You can always tell somebody's brand new, because I'm like, yeah, they're not going to be doing that for very long. That gets old real quick. But you get one thing about using a shop vac, because it can build up static electricity. You have to be careful that you don't touch the wrong thing, or you can, run a thing back to your board and mess some stuff up. I've never done it, but it's always been. Usually what I used to do is, if I was, not using any kind of dust collection and going to just use my shop vac, like I said, I built that 3-sided enclosure. I'd put a piece of cardboard up in the front. I'd let it make a mess. And then when I got ready to, when it finished, I'd pull my cardboard down and I'd shut my controller off, and then I would use the shop vac. But yeah, you do have to be a little careful because of the static electricity.
Yeah, I was just thinking, do you think it would burn out the router? Because I don't plan on getting an air or water cooled spindle right now. But you think it'll burn out the router faster if you have an enclosure all the time?
You talking as far
because of the heat?
Well, yeah. No.
I don't think so.
No, definitely not. Now, what I will say is, when you're surfacing the spoil board, if you do not have, I've got both the enclosure and a dust collection system on it. That's necessary, because if you have an enclosure and you don't have a dust collection system on it, and you're doing, say, resurfacing of an MDF spoil board, I mean, well, MDF. I mean, we're talking, I burned out my Porter cable because of the incredible amount of dust just from, I think it was twice. I was doing a big MDF job for maybe 5 or 6 hours, and you couldn't even see the job in there. And I figured, everything'll be fine. It's all in the enclosure. I don't have to worry. None of it's getting out here. Well, I didn't think about it, but it was all going through the machine as well. The armature on my Porter cable, and it was only a year old, completely shot from dust getting in there and causing carbon buildup. And well,
yeah. And again, I keep going back to my old videos and my old CNC.
Yeah,
I used to take a lot of teasing because I had a piece of a T-shirt,
underwear.
No, it was a T-shirt. It wasn't underwear. But I cut like a little square and I just set it over the top of the router, and then I took like one of them little black ties and snugged it up, and that was my filter. And people used to like, well, what that? They'd laugh and say, what the heck is that? But it works. I mean, you pull it off after running, especially MDF, and because you don't notice that stuff. You think, it's not that much going through that router. But if you put something like that on and then run a job and check, and you go, man, that. If I didn't have it caught in that T-shirt, it wouldn't have went through the.
Keith Allen is asking if a water-cooled spindle is quieter than an air-cooled spindle. Yes, I did. I did some tests, and Dave had a show some time ago, and it's maybe it's considerably quieter, but an air-cooled spindle is also quieter than considerably quieter than a regular router. So,
but let me point out to who was it that said that? Kevin Allen.
Keith said it, and I know exactly what you're going to say. Go for it.
The decibel level is pretty much all the same when it hits the wood.
Yep, that's it. That's it. And I've said it before. I prefer using half-inch bits, half-inch shanks, bits, half-inch. See if I can get this out once. Half-inch shanked bits as opposed to quarter-inch, because those quarter-inch bits seem to chatter something fierce compared to the half-inch ones. At least on my spindle, on my router. And I know that's a function also of how sharp the bit is, how the bit is made, what type of collet you have, what type of spindle what type of wood you're cutting. I can go on and on. But when I compare one bit to another, half-inch is a lot quieter for me.
Okay. Moving on down my list here. Another thing, like I said, the dust collection thing, that'll be the first thing you notice for your newbies that get a machine going. As soon as you fire it up, start cutting, you'll be, got to figure out a solution for the dust collection. The second thing might be, especially if you're building a bigger machine, like I said, that little small sidewinder I had, the cable management wasn't a big deal because the machine wasn't that big. It didn't have that much travel. But if you build a Gatton and you build it big enough to put a 4x4 piece of plywood on there, you're probably, no probably about it, you're going to need some kind of cable management. The easiest way to do it is to use the drag chain stuff. I meant to put links down below, and I got busy doing something else today and didn't put any links down there. Yeah. But
drag chains.
I use show them. Let me hit you, Javi, so it'll stay down here for a second. Yeah, there's the drag.
Drag chains allow you to, and don't do this if you have a rack and pinion system. It's not good for it, but whatever. Basically, the drag chains is one. It's a very convenient and very neat way to get your wires managed. Peter Posuelo has another interesting method.
Yes, he does. Yeah. But yeah, that stuff is not super expensive. I use the 15 by 30 millimeter. You can get smaller and you can get bigger.
You're still sharing me, Dave.
Size you get, make sure you plan ahead for some of these other little accessories that we're going to talk about. If it doesn't, if you're just running it for the cables going to the stepper motors, you don't really need that big a drag chain. But if
Dave, you're still sharing me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I wondered why I was still looking at you.
There you
Nope. Let's see. There we go.
You got
But yeah, but if you're planning ahead and plan to add homing switches, limit switches, whatever you want to call them, that kind of thing, you want to make sure you get a big enough drag chain to allow for extra wires. Even though when you first get it and put just the stepper cable in there, it may look like there's lots of room. If you start adding other stuff.
Oh yeah, particularly if you have a water cooled spindle and you need a couple of 1/4-inch or 3/8 inch air hoses, water hoses, going to and from. That takes up quite a bit of room.
Yeah, yep. That, and you add other things like like maybe a laser you may want to add down the road.
Yep.
So anything you're planning on adding, you just need to make sure you get a big enough drag chain or whatever you're going to use for your wire management that will accommodate further expansion, because you don't want to have to go back and replace smaller drag chain with it, because it's a pain in the butt kind of to run them wires through there. I really only want to do it once when I do it. But yeah, limit switches, homing switches. Again, that's not something you have to run a CNC, but man, they sure are nice. It's really nice to
that kit. It comes with the limit switches now.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Xylotech's kit. Yep.
I got it up on my other screen ready to hit payment once I go get my credit card.
Okay. But yeah, those are really nice to have. The biggest advantage probably, I think, for a homing switch is if power goes out or something, and you lose. There, as I've showed before, there's ways to get around doing that without having any of the switches. But if you've got homing switches and stuff, then you don't even have to worry about putting a little registration mark somewhere else off in the skeleton or whatever.
Homing switches are a dream for when it comes to resetting the machine. I've had the occasional power outage, but more than that, there's always mistakes that you make. You drive your CNC to the ground. Sometimes it's the VFD or some other electrical part that just in the middle just decides to stop for some reason. It happens. But when it happens in the middle of a 30-hour job or near the end of a 30-hour job, the last thing you want to do is start from scratch and possibly waste a very, very good, very expensive piece of wood. It's fantastic having the limit switches, and every time I start my machine up, I home them 000. They're at a machine home that is, the limit switches and the way they're mounted, they don't vary more than, I don't know, less than a 10,000th, if anything. Certainly not enough to make a noticeable difference when you restart the machine at the last coordinates that you were working with.
Now, would that homing switch be beneficial? Like, I know your Javi, your CNC's very large, and I'm doing a 5x5, so that I can actually do a 4x8 sheet.
Right.
So once I move that sheet in, I want to know where.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be beneficial.
What you would do is, they're very beneficial on any machine, because you set your limit switches, your homing switches. I'm sorry, the homing switches do not move. They are fixed at 0, 0 at your machine 0, 0, 0, wherever you adjust that to be. So as long as you don't take your machine apart and put it back together, you're going to always have the same reference point, 0, 0, 0. And 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be moving your router, or you're not going to be reassembling your machine in the middle of a when you go to refresh a job. So it will be at the exact same position. Power cuts out, you lose the position, you move it moves by accident, no problem. turn the machine on, go to 0, 0, 0, and well, I mean, there's a few other things you got to keep in mind as far as knowing where your job is zeroed at, and where but if your machine starts at 0, for instance, my machine starts at 0, 0, 0, and all my jobs, unless I'm going off center, all my jobs start at 2, 2, 0. Well, 2, 2, and whatever Z is. Z will be always calibrated. But I have a little exactly a 2-inch L-shaped bracket that holds all my pieces on one side, and it's exactly 2-inch. I mean, I actually cut it with a bit to be at 2, 2 on X equals 2, Y equals 2. So no matter what, that's my 0 for all my jobs. So I calibrate by homing the switch, the homing switches, and then I set it to exactly 2, 2, the job site. And no matter what, any job I have it locked in there, that's what I go by, and it never fails.
Yeah, I want to thank Becca Miller and Jerry Bonnefeld. I saw somebody had asked, let's see, Keith Allen says, "Who is Peter?" We didn't mention his whole name. It's Peter Pasquello from CNC Nuts. He has another interesting. Well, he has a lot of great videos to start with. If you're not already subscribed to him, you should go look him up and
yeah. Let me send the link to the to his innovative.
Yeah, if you can put
drag
that
chain video, yeah.
But yeah, if you're not already subscribed to him, you should be. He's from New Zealand, so he may not be out in the chat tonight because it's actually Sunday afternoon or something. I do see we have a couple of folks from down under. We got John. Let's see, where was it? John Revel and Rob Hampton, I think I saw earlier from Melbourne. So I appreciate you guys spending your Sunday, part of your Sunday with us. Let's, and by the way, too, if y'all have any questions about anything, Ronald Ledger just says uninterruptible power supply, UPS. That could be a CNC accessory, I guess. I don't, I guess it would depend on your area. My power is very seldom ever goes out.
The big issue with uninterruptible power supplies is it's fine for the computer, but here's the issue. You've got major amperage going through for your vacuum and for your actual router. I mean, we're talking 10, 12 amps. It depends on the on your unit, and when you're talking that many amps, you're either talking a very, very powerful and very expensive power backup, or only salvage the computer. But at that point, now your computer. Well, let's see.
Yeah, if you're running a real small machine with a small router or something, maybe that would work. But if you got a setup like mine with a
or even mine, well, practically anyone with because the thing is, you'd be turning off the spindle or router and then continuing to move the machine. Well, even those motors draw, I mean, a good 3-4 amps, and that's, I mean, we're talking 3-4 amps. That's 3,000 or 4,000 watts off the top of my head just for the stepper motors.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty heavy duty power supply. And unless you're prepared to do another 10,000 watts for the not 10,000 watts, 1,000. My mind is going 10 amps, 50. Unless you're prepared to do a lot more amperage for the spindle itself, then you're going to be turning off the spindle and running the motors with the spindle not running.
Yeah. I don't know that would be a good idea. Like you said, it's great for computers and stuff like that, but not so much the machine stuff. Of Carl Whitaker in the house. How you doing, Carl? Good to see you on here, buddy.
Yeah, and as Todd was mentioning, the depending on your setup, because the you'd either have to, well, yeah, mine, I've got a 2-phase VFD that operates 3-phase spindle, like most of them are. Yeah, it gets a little. The demand is too high. To be feasible, really, the easiest solution is to restart or get a really nice expensive unit.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we were, let's see, we were on the limit switches, homing switches. Like I said, if you're just starting out, it's not something you have to have, but you should probably plan for them in the future, because they are, once you have them, you don't really want to go back the other way. I mean,
Yeah.
it's that way.
And Michael creates a script on his computer to pause his Mach 3 on power shutoff. I've had occasion where a pause doesn't restart exactly at the same point, even though it should. Most of the time it does, 99 times out of 100. But upon a power shutoff and pausing, it's well, again, I'd rather restart with homing switches myself.
Yeah.
But there are different. That's what I'm getting at. Is there are different ways to do it.
Yeah, and like I said, it would probably depend on your area. You know, if you live in an area where every time the wind blows a little bit, the power flickers, then you might want to think about something like that. My power is very stable. I don't have, you know, it takes a heck of a storm to knock the power out around here. So I'm pretty fortunate that way.
Yep.
All right, let's move on and talk about a couple other things here. Let's see. We were talking about well, kind of on the same line as the homing switches. Another thing that, again, you don't absolutely have to have, but it's really nice when you do have, and that is a touch plate or some kind of a help me, Javi. What's the one Bill Griggs has? The
XYZ
name for his, but it will zero the X, Y, and the Z. You know, it fits on the corner of a thing. When I say touch plate, I'm usually just talking about just the Z axis, because that's all I ever worry about setting.
I just noticed Mike's shirt.
I found it. I moved some papers and it fell on. I guess you sent me more than one.
He's got my sticker on his shirt.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He's got a Javi CNC shirt, homemade.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, triple edge. Thank you, Carl. He put it. Triple edge finder is what.
Yes, that's it.
There's another one I think called try something. I don't know. But yeah, triple edge finder is the one that Bill Griggs sells. It will find X, Y, and Z. I guess you put it on like a lower left-hand corner or whatever. But even if you don't go that route, just, you know, again, if you've watched my videos, you've seen my little cheap little piece of leftover angle, about 3 or 4 inches long, and hook a wire to it, and, you know, hook another wire to connect to the ground on your spindle or router or whatever, if you need it. Some of them don't need it. And just, especially when you're doing like, well, word on word, some people call it text on text, that kind of stuff, where you're changing bits and you really need to be dead on after you swap the bit, because if you don't, you'll have that little line, and it's really, really annoying trying to sand that stuff. You know, like if you're using the, yeah, thank you, Ryan. Traqueta, I guess. I don't know how you say that, but yeah, there's another brand out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are, you know, like, again, something you don't have to have, but something you should probably plan for down the road and think about as you're doing your wiring or getting your breakout board or whatever. Make sure you got enough connections for all of that. Let's see.
Another thing related to the touch plate, because since you mentioned the XYZ finder, I'll mention the laser crosshairs. Because right along with it, in fact, well, I won't turn my machine on, but I will show you if I can get the camera out here enough. Let's see here. Hang on. Let me zoom in. All right. So on my machine, let's see if I can bring this over. On my machine right here, I basically have, it's a laser with it's focusable, shoots straight down a crosshair, just a crosshair. This isn't any type of Jtech or burning laser or anything like that. It's just visual, and it shoots a crosshair. And I have a macro in Mach 3, which basically will you have the offset position Y and X from the center of the bit. This is always in the same position. It's a laser crosshair. I center it on my piece. Let's say I'm working with a circle and I already marked the circle. I'll center the crosshairs on it. I click one button and this will automatically move the spindle exactly to where the crosshairs was and turn off the crosshair for me, all in one click of a button. It's a handy feature to have if you're working with say circles or something where you need the edge, the exact edge. And like I said, for most of the times, if I'm working with a square piece, I'll butt it right up against my my frame. And but that's a nice handy thing to have, is the laser.
Yeah, Ryan Ballard and says my favorite CNC accessory is Dave. I've been called a lot of things, but I don't think I've ever been called a CNC accessory until tonight. But
well, you've enhanced my CNC and made it more easier to work with. So I guess technically, yes.
Okay, well, I'll accept that title then, I guess. All right, so we've covered the touch plate, and you know, what'd you say you call that thing? Crosshairs, I guess. Would
laser crosshairs is all I could think of. A laser. It's a laser, but but when people say laser, they don't think of a laser for zeroing X and Y. They think of a laser for burning, for engraving.
Yeah, which is another CNC,
another accessory.
You know, everybody's probably seen. Well, I've got mine sitting right here, but this is my little Jtech Photonic laser, and you can see this is the part that a lot of people will just mount right on the side of their Z box or someplace. I think Michael Chipser and Jerry Brown both, I think, have theirs mounted beside it somewhere. And so that, you know, that's a really neat accessory. And these are, they're not cheap, but they're really not that expensive for what they do. You can really make some cool stuff. And I wanted to mention too, I failed to mention at the top of the show, but if there are any people out there in the chat tonight, I know we got 70-some folks watching, but if there are any folks out there in the chat that are brand new, maybe this is their first time here, if you want to see some of the fantastic projects that these folks are doing with these hobby CNC machines, go to the Facebook group, Gatton CNC, or I should say the GarageWorks CNC, because I put a thing on there. When did I do it? Yesterday, I think. You know, every so often I'll say, hey, you know, what are you guys making this week? Post pics, and I am always blown away by the projects that these guys are doing, guys and gals, I should say, with these hobby CNC machines. Some of it's laser, some of it's you know, routing, some of it's V carving, some of it's the 3D stuff, but just some, I mean, it's just awesome stuff. You don't have to have a super high dollar CNC machine to make good stuff. I got hundreds of customers that prove that. So anyway, I just want to mention that if you're brand new and want to learn about what all this CNC stuff is about and see what folks are making, go check that out. All right, so a laser is another good thing, and I guess we should have mentioned when we were talking about homing switches. Again, this is not something that I don't use. I've done them on a couple of machines, but on my main machine, I don't have one, and that is an E-stop. They're not hard to wire. They're one of the easier things to wire, and it's kind of well.
And if you're paranoid, you could actually wire one outside of your box, inside of your box, by your desk. Wire 3, wire 5, wire 10 of them. So wherever you are at any point, if you hear something, you could just hit it. But as Dave's, I'm sure, about to say, by the time you react,
it's already too late. So that's why I don't bother wiring them up on my main machine, is because, like I said, by the time you hear the noise and go, oh, it's too late.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether you hit it now or you go over and hit. What I've always done, and I don't know if anybody else does this, but if you don't have an E-stop and you're using, say, Mach 3 or even the UC CNC or whatever, you can hit cycle start, and as it gets running, you can take your mouse and move it and park your mouse right over the reset button. And then that way, if something happens, you can hit that. You don't have to grab the mouse and then find it. You're already there. So that'll save you a few seconds. But like I said, by the time the thing starts making that weird noise that we all dread, it's too late anyway, probably. So, but maybe the main thing is to try, if it's really diving down or something, the main thing is to try to hit the E-stop to keep it from damaging the machine. You can pretty much kiss your project goodbye. Yeah. But or maybe not. This depends on what it is. I've salvaged some things too, but yeah, an E-stop is another thing that is kind of a good CNC accessory, I guess. Although, like I said, I don't really use them myself, but that don't mean they're not good.
Yeah, that kit again, I was going to say, has 2, comes with 2.
Okay.
E-stops now.
Well,
I don't know what was
I'm not
before.
sure, Mike, but I think the ones that come with that kit are little bitty dinky ones. If I'm going to get an E-stop, you can. In fact, if you go to my website, I think I've got a link for one, and it's like a square little box about this big, and then the button is like this. So it's a good sized button that you can hit.
I'm going to challenge. You know who would be? I think Jerry Brown would be perfect for this. I'm going to challenge Jerry Brown to make one, say, 12 inches in diameter. Okay, 8 inches. 8 inches. A big E-stop, 8 inches in diameter, and just I'd love to see that. And who else? Who better than Jerry Brown, who has tons of accessories? He's in. Perfect.
He's in.
He doesn't have an app on his phone that just like stops it.
Well, probably does. Knowing him, he's under his cap. He's got a brainwave reader, and just all he's got to do is look over and.
Okay, moving on from the E-stop, another thing that's really handy to have is really a couple of things. A wireless keyboard is handy. I've never been a big fan of wireless stuff until I got a wireless keyboard, and now that I have it, it's nice because you can just pick it up and move it around to the table or whatever you're doing. And another thing that's even better than a wireless keyboard is a pendant of some kind. I've got links to a couple of different pendants. I've shown them on these shows and in videos and stuff. There's one that's about $40-something bucks I think it's just called a Mach 3 pendant.
Yep.
And I believe it will work with.
And you don't have to go. You don't have to go hog wild. There's. I went super cheap. I bought one of these Logitech wired USB game controllers, and while it's not readily compatible with Mach 3 or so it said, and by the way, $7 on Amazon, I bought a nice little extension cable for another $6-7. So this thing is, I mean, my computer's way over on the other end. I have a thing called XMapper, which is a free PC mapping program, which will map anything you want to a key. So you just map these to the up and down arrows, to the page up, page down, et cetera, to your escape, to your pause, and you use it for more than a week, and you'll be very comfortable with it. But not, I mean, obviously, there's nothing like a pendant, and the same thing. Everybody's one day I may get one.
That's a good point. I didn't realize you had a thing. What do you call it? Game controller, I guess is what that's called.
Yeah, I just did it on the cheap. I figured.
That's a very inexpensive way to make your own pendant. The other kind of pendants, like I said, I've got one that's a link on my website. I think it's around $40 or so. It's kind of a basic thing, but it's really nice because you don't have to, with a game controller, I guess when you set it all up, you got to remember what that stuff is or print you out some little labels or something. I would have a hard time remembering that stuff.
Right. Yeah, like I said, it took me a week. Now I'm comfortable with it, but yeah, it takes a little while to get used to it. Which one does this? Oh, went the wrong way.
And of course, the other pendant that I have a link for on my website. And for those of you who are maybe watching this after the fact, after this is recording, I meant to put all these links in this thing, and I got busy doing something else and totally forgot it. But I'll go back and put all these in. So what we're talking about tonight, if you're watching this tomorrow or sometime, there should be some links down there below. But the other pendant I have is, I don't know, I think it's around $80 or $90, but it's got the hand wheel, and it also has like the little LED or digital readout thing or whatever. And those are really nice. Again, it's not something you got to have starting out, but as you progress and get these other accessories, that is something that's really nice to have, because you can actually put it in, with just a button, click it on step mode. You can set it from 10 thousandths or 1 thousandths or 100 thousandths or whatever. And
that one's wireless.
You can get that. The one I'm talking about now, I have it as a wired thing,
right?
Which I wish I'd have bought the wireless, because I'm all the time tripping over.
Yeah, because for the Colossus, because this one's it's 24 by 36. It's a small machine, and I'm always sitting at my desk. The cable's long enough, so it's fine. But the Colossus, to go around to the other corner, and in the type space that I have over there, it's a 7-foot by 7-foot machine. I'd much rather have a pendant just handy, with me wherever I am.
Well, like I said, the one I have has the USB cable, but it's got a really long cable, so the length isn't a problem. It's just that because it's long, it's always on the floor.
Yeah.
I wish I'd have got the wireless, but either one of those are really nice to have once you get a little further into the CNC thing. Really good. And I would recommend, if you can get the more expensive one, get it, because you won't be disappointed. I know when I first got the Mach 3 one, a bunch of people went crazy and bought that one too, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then I went later on and bought the better one, and maybe a few of them bought that. But the one with the hand wheel and that thing, I mean, it does everything. It's just, you can literally run the machine from that. So I really like that one. Let's see here. My list isn't, I have to look it over because it's really not in any kind of order as we're talking about these things.
Yeah, I'm waiting for one of them to demonstrate.
Okay, another thing that if again I'm not here at my machine or out back, but in both my shop and on the front of my Gatton, if any of you watched videos where I'm doing that, you'll notice, as Javi called them, convenience switches. And that's nothing more than just some regular light switches.
Yeah, regular outlets of any type, such as this one here for my lights, this one here for my vacuum, and I don't have to go walk around or anything. Or in the case of Dave or myself, also I have another one for my VFD. You know, whether you turn on your router, whether you switch your router on, whether you have the Gatton, the official Gatton CNC controller made by Javi that you can actually control your VFD. They're very handy to have. You place, if you have a little bit of electrical knowledge or have a friend that does, you basically, if not, what are you doing owning a CNC?
I'm fortunate because I have my buddy Jim that does, he makes all kinds of stuff like that for me. And he made one for me out in my shop, and then when I built the Gatton out here in the garage, he made another one. But it's just, he's got like, I got 4 switches on the front, and there's enough cabling that runs where I can mount the outlets on the back of the machine. So I can stand right there at the front of the machine. I can turn on my VFD, which also turns on my pump, so I don't forget to turn that on for the water-cooled spindle. I've got one that'll turn on my drive box. And let's see, what's this? Oh, the other one's for my vacuum, which is my dust collector that's over in the corner. And then I also have one where I just have my shop vac plugged in, so I can flip the switch and turn it on, and then just grab the hose if I need to, you know, get something off the table or around the floor or whatever with that. So, but it's really nice just to have a set of switches there, and outlets to plug different. And I can really plug a lot of different things in. The thing he made me's got, like, for each switch I can have 4 different things plugged in there. Yep. So those are kind of neat. Again, not something you gotta have, but you know, if you're handy with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Keith mentioned that he has a couple of 110 relays on his controller board that he controls through Mach 3. I mean, that's another way to go. Also, I have a lot of the pump for my spindle and the VFD, all these things I have wired through, and you can also do that if you've got enough connections. Go right through the and one thing that you have, Dave, that you have an advantage over me. I use the my light switch goes directly to a plug, whereas Jim, being an electrician, being a very good electrician that he is, your buddy Jim wired in a bunch of heavy duty relays. So your switches, they barely pull. I mean, they're going to last a lot longer than mine. Mine will burn out from after a while. I mean, I'm sure they'll last for a long time, but the way you have yours set up is spot on.
I see Keith Allen says, if I purchase the wireless controller, and I'm assuming he's talking about the pendant, he said I would misplace it. One neat thing about these pendants is they have magnets in them. So you can, you know, if you've got, like, the frame of my machine is steel, so I can just stick it right on the front. Or now I'm using that kiosk enclosure that I'm using to run my Gatton, which I should have mentioned those, I guess. It's steel, so I can just stick it right on the side of that enclosure. So.
Don't mention them too much. I want one to be available when we go to Atlanta.
Okay, all right. Got to make sure you let us know ahead of time, because we got to make arrangements.
Oh yeah,
they're all in Fort Lauderdale right now. But anybody that's going to be at the show at Hickory, we'll talk about that at the end tonight. But yeah, we can make delivery, meet up with you at the show over in Hickory if somebody's wanting one. Let's see what else we got here. Well, I'm getting a lot of stuff across the. Okay, well, Javi, you've already showed when you were showing that switch, you showed your lighting. I know there's a lot of guys, especially the ones that build the Gatton CNCs. They get a little fancy and put some extra lighting up under the gantry. Again, not something you got to have, but.
Yep, but it's nice. Yeah, I've seen some. I think I believe Mark and also Jerry have done that. Not sure.
I think Mark has probably done the slickest install that I've seen. I mean, there's probably more guys out there that have done it, but yeah, his lights up under
at Amazon. You could buy one of those LED kits. It's 15 feet, 16 feet of LEDs stick on, but the sticker, you're better off putting some clips. And it runs off 12 volts, and you have a remote control with 65,000 combination of light choices. So that's for those of you who like the flash, or like Mark did, task lighting underneath the CNC, which a lot of times, I mean, my particular setup is it's like Walmart lights in the middle of the night. So it's so bright that there are no shadows produced by the gantry. But if you have, like normal people have, regular ceiling lights or task lighting, then the gantry could block your view of the piece, and it's beneficial to have lights under the gantry.
Yeah. I don't have lights under my gantry, but I have some really, and again, thanks to my buddy Jim, he put me some really nice LED fixtures in my garage so that it's really bright out there. And for an old guy like me who can't see out of one eye and blind in the other, it's nice to have some good lighting out there.
Jerry Brown wants to install a disco ball on his.
I thought he already had one. I thought everything on that thing. Another thing, we've talked about routers and spindles and stuff like that. Another thing that's, again, this is a little accessory that's kind of handy to have. I don't have one on my spindle, but I do have one on my Porter cable around back on the garage works that I have back there. And that is a muscle chuck. That's a kind of neat little accessory.
I'm looking for the, that's the one thing about the muscle chuck. I always misplace that stupid key, and I've got 3 of them. There it is. I wanted to show the muscle chuck in action. For those of you who haven't seen this yet, see if I can possibly put this in the right location.
And Javi's got one there on his spindle. You can get them on, different size, for different size bits, and also for different size routers and spindles. So they are a pretty cool little.
Let's see here.
Deal.
All right. So if let's see if the light is better. If it's better with could you see it better with the light?
Yeah, I can see it pretty good. Let me lock it on you so I'll quit jumping around here.
Yeah, simply put, with a muscle chuck, you take the you take your 6mm T handle, you put it in the muscle chuck, and it's simply half a turn, pull the spindle out, put the new one in. I mean the bit. Put the new bit in, twist, you're done. Forget about any type of fumbling with collets underneath. Normally, all I do is feel for it with my thumb, and insert the key. It's that simple. Twist, open, twist, closed, and it's done.
Yeah, and they work really, really good too. I haven't used one a whole lot. I have one on my Porter cable back there.
I'm sharing still, Dave.
Oh, okay, and thank you. But there's, at least the one I have, there's not an issue with run out or something like that, and it works really good.
They run anywhere between $80 and $105, and no, I'm not getting anything from Muscle Chuck. I wish I was, because I'd like to put them on all my equipment. I have one on my I have one on the other router on the Colossus, and I have one on my table router. Well, I guess there's not really many more routers than that. But I'll tell you, it's my biggest concern when I bought them. I did a bunch of research because I was at these high speeds. Well, it's a router; it's what they're meant for. But I was wondering if there was any type of offset or imbalancing, and no, those things are machined very well. There's no noticeable or apparent imbalance of any type with the muscle chuck.
Okay. All right. Let me cross muscle chuck off my list here. We're a little past 9, and we've got just a couple of more things, so this is working out pretty good. Javi, I know you can show a good example of this, and I would consider this probably a CNC accessory, because once you start, you know, start running your CNC, you got a belt, and you're starting to run different projects, you will very soon have quite a collection of router bits. So Javi's got a really nice thing. If you can show us there, Javi, I'll again lock it on.
Yeah, let me see if I can get the camera around to there. Yeah, I think I can.
Again, doesn't have to be anything really fancy. That looks just like some scrap wood.
As far as the camera will go, but basically, I mean, I went all out because I used to make trophies, so I can easily engrave on this metal. But you could take a label maker and do the same thing, and I 1/4 inch straight bit, 1/4 inch straight bit, plunge cutting straight bit, bottom cleaning plunge bit in the wrong place. I cut these holes to 1/2 inch. I cut these to 1/4 inch. I like them. They're not perfectly snug, but they fit nice and comfortably. They're not going to pop out or anything. There are people who are OCD and really want the perfect fit. Well, Becca was mentioning last time she was on that.
Javi, if I could interrupt you just
go ahead.
Quick second. No, you're good. Stay right there.
Yeah.
I just wanted to address a question. Larry Duggar asked, do you have to have a flat side on the bit to use the muscle chuck? No, you do not. It works just like, well, almost like a collet, I guess. It kind of squeezes.
Yeah, it actually is pretty much what let me undo that so I can show you. If you could see let's see if I can get a little light in there.
Yeah, it's just squeezing the whole
light somewhere. But anyway, if you could see, there's it's basically. Let me turn off the light, see if I get a better. That doesn't help much. It's nothing more than a ring. Think of a ring. Imagine if there was a screw between my fingers and my thumb. It's nothing more than a round clamp, and then you just screw in you tighten it. It's this type of a grip, as opposed to a collet, which kind of shrinks and tightens.
Yeah.
I have yet to have any runoff whatsoever on a single bit here.
Yeah.
For the muscle chuck.
Okay, so yeah, Larry, you don't have to have a flat side on your bit for that to work. Getting back to the bit organizer, I mean, Javi's got something pretty fancy. You could do something as simple as, like a couple of weeks ago when we talked about router bits, I showed my my little piece of wood that I had where I had some 1/4 inch holes and some 1/2 inch holes, and there, wasn't nothing fancy, but that's, you don't need just something to stick them in to kind of organize them and keep them from banging together. You could also use a piece of Kaizen foam or probably styrofoam or something, anything like that.
And as I was mentioning, Becca mentioned the inserts that Rockler sells that you can purchase those. You drill one size and it'll have a 1/2 inch or a 1/4 inch or a different type of insert for for the bits, and that's that comes in pretty handy as well. If, like I said, if you like that precision.
Okay. Yeah, we're just about to wipe out my list here. You know, again, we've been talking about routers and spindles. If you do have a spindle, another thing that is super handy to have on it, well, I should say if you have a water-cooled spindle, like myself and like Javi, is a flow meter of some kind.
Ah, yes.
So that you can see when that water's ain't flowing, because if it ain't flowing, you got to figure out why. Get that water running through there. It'll take a little bit for those things to burn up, but you know, you got to have a. Let me lock it on you again, Javi.
Yeah, I have a flow meter right here. Sorry, I didn't want to turn the machine on, but when with the doors open, it's quite loud. But basically, when the only problem I faced is that they came with. I have to find a place that sells these little connectors for this Chinese spindle that go to a 3/8 inch or 1/4 inch inside diameter line, which I have here, because these are this came with it, but they didn't bring enough line. It's 6 millimeter, and 6 millimeter, as we know, is just under 1/4 inch.
It's 0.236.
Yeah. So, but the flow meter works fantastic. It lets me know. I used to have 2 of them on there. One of them was a little defective. These are cheap. I got them, you know, like $15 each, something like that. They have some real nice ones that are $50, and that won't ever have a problem. But this is pure. This is just probably printed plastic.
Yeah, and I've got the exact same one. Javi sent me one, and I've got the exact same one on mine. But it you know, at a glance now, you can see that little blade moving. And if it's spinning, you know you're got water running through there, and you don't have to worry about overheating your spindle.
Yeah.
Raymond Dixon over there in the chat says, Dave, how about dial gauges and calipers? That's a good thing to have. Again, you know, not something you got to have, but calipers are always good. And I prefer the dial calipers. A lot of people don't know how to read them. And
yep, calipers are always something you got to have around. That's a good point. I missed that one on your list, Dave.
Yeah, well, I did too. I guess because I've always had them around.
Yeah, digital calipers or something that's
you know, if you don't know how to read a dial caliper, get a digital caliper. The only thing I don't like about the digitals is you got to worry about the batteries and all that stuff. With the dial caliper, you take care of it, and you never have to replace the batteries because it don't have any. So that's why I like those.
Dave, you use those calipers to measure the thickness of your wood? Is that what do you use the calipers for? That's
probably one of the main things that comes in handy, because when you're writing your program, and in fact, I just did that today. I was cutting some plywood today, and the label said it was 0.71 thick. You know, supposed to be 3/4 plywood. Well, I actually took my calipers and measured the thickness, because I was actually, believe it or not, folks, believe it or not, write it down on your calendar. Dave actually cut something on his Gatton CNC and didn't have a sacrificial thing under it.
Whoa, that's rare.
So what I did is I measured with dial caliper. Yeah, it's rare. It's like this was the first time ever I've done it. Vernier caliper. Yeah, I don't have good enough eyes to read Vernier calipers. You got to line up all them lines. So I go with the dial. I can at least see those. But yeah, I took my calipers and I measured, and sure enough, it was not quite 710. It was more like 705 or something. So I went ahead and programmed my profile cut, or actually I was doing a pocket. I programmed it to go 0.695 deep. And I knew that I would leave just a little onion skin and be able to bust that out and sand that out. So I did. Still didn't mess up my little table there, but yeah, dial calipers, Vernier calipers, whatever you know how to read. Some people, you know, like I said, don't know how to read dial.
And they have them. I mean, $5. You can get them for $5 to $6. I'm looking at them right now on Amazon. $5 for.
Yeah, you don't have to be super high dollar, especially if you're like, you know, you're going to be out in the shop and you set them on your machine, you bump them and they fall off.
You calibrate them. Yeah, you calibrate them, and the wood is going to expand more than the error, if there is any, on these cheap things.
Yeah, yeah. So,
but I've had, like you, I've had wood. I've had 3/4 inch ply that was anywhere between 0.68, if you can believe that, all the way up to close to 0.74. You know, well, no, I think I've some of the birch, the high quality birch plywood that is actually 0.75. But I've never had anything more than 0.75. They're good about that.
Yeah. Jerry Brown says disco ball on order, found clearance at Walmart. This is going to make the Gatton Gatton run so much smoother. Well, I expect to see video of you cutting a rug out there in your shop then.
Friday night party at Jerry Brown's house.
There we go. But yeah, you can use the calipers for calibration.
Yeah, and it's also another useful tool for it is I buy every now and then when I want to rough something out. I mean, when I want to practice, let's say I don't want to use a very, very expensive piece of wood for a job that I'm doing, but I want to make sure it cuts out right. I also don't want to waste my a relatively good priced router bit on it. And since I'm going to be making, on most of my jobs, I make 5 or 6 or 7 bit changes. So that's normal for me quite often. And I end up using a cheap router bit for cheap wood for throwaway. And the cheap bits are often different as far as the sizes. Sometimes they're not 1/4 inch. I ordered a 1/4 inch bit the other day that was, I think it was 3 or 4 hundredths off. It was ridiculous. It was more of a having a caliper for that, so you can calibrate your. So all you got to do is just change a number in Aspire or in VCarve, and run the code.
Yeah. Okay, we've pretty much covered everything. There's one more thing that I would add that you might consider this a CNC accessory. Some of you might not, but this is one thing that you definitely want to plan ahead if you think, because it's a lot harder to add these after the fact, and that is casters, preferably good locking casters. You know, some guys will think they got to have their CNC machine really set and solid and all that. You can put them on casters. I personally like to build everything on casters because
so do I.
Move it around.
Because I got so much junk around this, but this is actually on casters.
Yeah, and I mean the thing's going to be heavy enough if you have good quality casters, and you have like the 2 in the front lock or whatever, lock them down. It's not going to go anywhere. It's going to.
Yeah, those solid ones, even the ones from Harbor Freight, those solid rubber ones are really nice.
Yeah. I found, well, I don't know about Harbor Freight but you can get casters pretty dang cheap off Amazon.
That's true.
Where I've got some here lately. And they work great. So casters, you know, as you're building your table, or, you know, if you're building if you got a desktop CNC and you're building something to set it on, because these CNCs, they do get kind of heavy. I mean, they're not super heavy, some of them, but you know, if you're like me, I don't ever have anybody around here to help me move stuff. So that's why I build everything on casters, so I can move it around myself.
Ryan was saying I'm on casters as well.
Yeah.
What were you saying a second ago about slipped my mind, but it was I forgot who it was. Keith was asking about how we clamp things down on the bed, but that's going to be a whole show, I believe.
Well, that was the final thing here. I was going to just kind of skim over because, like you said, we're going to kind of dedicate another whole show to this, but some of the you know, as far as a CNC accessory, I wouldn't necessarily consider clamps and things like that so much an accessory, because you got to have them to start out. You got to be able to secure your material to your table and stuff like that. But there are other things that, as you know, and I'm sure Jerry Brown probably does it. I know Michael Chipser probably does it. These guys that run stuff and sell a lot of stuff, and they do multiples. It's neat to make, you know, what I call a fixture, where you can just mill pockets and, you know, put your pre-sized material in these different things, and you can hit a button and go off and do something else, and it'll, you know, run and then move over and do this one. And, you know, you can do a 2, or you could do, you know, a whole mess of them, 50 or something, depending on what the size is. But that, you know, that's kind of going into the hold down methods and different ways to hold material to cut. So that's why I'm mentioning that last, because we will probably do another a show about hold down methods, because believe it or not, there's a bunch of different ways to hold material down.
Yep.
And there's not any one that's any better than the other. There's certain applications,
right,
where you want to do one thing, and
yeah, like you have different tools for different jobs, you have different clamps for different jobs as well.
Yeah. But
Hey, do you know anybody that has a vacuum table?
That was one of the things. You can either make your whole table a vacuum, or if there's somebody that has a specific product, they may make just a little.
You can make a small vacuum attachment that you clamp onto your table.
Yeah, you clamp it on, and then that way you can
you put a hose on the side, and there you go.
Yeah. So we'll have to try to find somebody when we do the show for hold downs. If there's anybody out there that has a vacuum type thing. Well,
Ryan was saying Peter has one. Maybe we'll see if he can be on the show next week.
Yeah, we need to get him on. But that's probably what I guess we're going to talk about next week. You know, again, folks, after this becomes a video, if you'll put in your comments down in the comment, not the chat section, but the comment thing, what you'd like for us to do. You know, that's why we're talking about CNC accessories. That's what people were wanting us to talk about tonight. So we'll talk about that next week. Anything else? Like I said, the casters, the vacuum table, clamps, fixtures, that's all kind of in another.
Yeah, the only other thing that I would say is, and it's not really much of an accessory, but it's very useful, is I have different, whether it's outlets or mounts for screwdrivers or pencils, or even my I have a mount to hang up my my wrench, which I'm always losing, my Allen wrench, and which is not on the mount, but it's there nonetheless. And for those of you who are OCD and like everything organized, it's far more beneficial than it is for me, who misplaces things. But you could think of them as accessories, but many of those are actual. I mean, just like you would need to have your collet wrenches handy, many of these tools is more of a necessity than an accessory.
Yeah, and probably a lot of people, when they set the wrenches down and then spend 5 minutes looking for them, that's when they go, well, I guess I'm going to make a little thing to hook them.
Yeah,
you know, and that's how you
those little Harbor Freight magnet strips work great for most of your tools. And
yeah. Well, I hope everybody got something out of tonight's show. We've had a good crowd, had over 80 folks watching a little while ago. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Mike, you're just getting.
I thought of one. I thought of one we didn't mention because I was thinking of Jerry, which again, it's in my opinion, it's overkill, but It may, but it may vary, but it does prolong the life of your spindle. A little radiator for your coolant, for the water cooled spindle. If you do have one, I mean those things come in handy.
Yeah, because there's that method, and then of course there's the method I use, which is a bucket of water.
A bucket of water. That's the method I have, and I tell you, the only time my spindle was warm to the touch was when I ran out of water and didn't even realize it, and there was just it was still filled with water, the tank, but nothing was circulating. And well, you were running like that for a couple months and you didn't even realize it. And it was maybe warm to the touch after a 20 or 30 hour run. But that probably didn't help prolong the life of the spindle, but I've never had it get more than, say, 90, 95 degrees Fahrenheit at the most, which is relatively, cool. Running, the bucket will get warm, and after a long run, it will build up pressure. So I could see an advantage, but as far as longevity, if you want to look at it that way, but I don't know if I think this spindle's going to last me a lifetime the way it's running. Who knows?
Okay. Well, Mike, you are a new Gatton CNC person. How far along are you? Are you just getting started collecting this stuff?
Yeah, I have everything. I totally forgot about the drag chain. So that I have to buy because I'm definitely going to have the limit switches and eventually get the laser. So I'll get the larger.
Yeah. Well, see, that's hopefully this show tonight will help some folks, because when you know about all these extra little bells and whistles, for lack of a better word, you can kind of plan at the start of the build, like, oh, well, I may not buy that right away, but I want to plan for it and buy the big enough drag chain, or, because that would really be a bummer to.
Grant just sent you a super chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Grant. I appreciate it. Always good to know that super chat button works. I don't know where that money goes, but I appreciate the super chat. I guess it goes. I'm not sure where. I guess it goes in the Google.
Goes to your AdSense, yeah,
or something. But
yeah, I got pretty much everything I need. I'm gonna order the steppers and then start building the table, since I have a couple of days I can get to it.
Yeah. Well, I'm anxious to see your build. Like I said, every time I see the stuff people post on, whether it be Facebook or in the community forum or wherever, I'm just amazed at the stuff these folks make with, and not just the stuff they make, but just the way they build their machines. Putting their own little personal touches and stuff on them. And that's what they're for. I mean, it's a DIY kit. You can do it however you want to do it.
I was going to try and outdo Javi and mount it to the ceiling and just have it drop down so I could put the wood there and then have it bring it back up. But my wife won't let me mount anything up there. So
yeah.
No, I thought about that. Cuts down on the light. I that was my first thought. Is like,
well, all the sawdust would fall down to the floor and I just have to sweep it up.
Yeah. Well, mine just falls down in one little corner at the most.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that's funny. Who was it? I just put a video out today on a property that I bought because I'm building a house. It's all funny and everything, but somebody commented on it. I forgot whom, and they said Dave should design. And then I was just thinking about it when you said it's a DIY kit. You've already designed it. I could build any size I want, but they said Dave should design a CNC that's 30 by 40, so I could just set it out there and just have it build my house. That's an awful small house, But yeah, that's an idea. Maybe I'll do that. I'd have to find those got to be what, 1-inch screws for that.
1 inch. You probably have to fatter than 1 inch if you're gonna do that.
Probably fatter than 1 inch if I'm going to go 40 feet on that gantry.
Yeah. All right, we're going to wrap this one up. I appreciate everybody hanging around. We've been going on here about an hour and a half, which is about usual for us. We always run along, seems like. Before we get out of here tonight, keep in mind that you'll want to subscribe and hit the notification bell thing so that you can learn all about the upcoming giveaway that I mentioned earlier. Like I said, I'm going to be doing I don't know what you call it, 30,000 sub giveaway or whatever. So first time I've ever done one like that. But that's a good excuse as any to do giveaway, I guess. And also hope you'll come back and check with us in the upcoming weeks. We'll be getting more into the new features on the Vectric VCarve Pro and Aspire. If anybody's out there that uses Aspire that wants to come on the show and show off some of the new stuff, we'll be talking about that as well. And probably, like I said, next week we'll be doing we'll talk about the different types of hold down methods, fixtures, all that kind of stuff. And anyway, Mike, you got anything you want to say before we get out of here?
No, that's Mike Murray from Miter Mike's Woodshop.
There you go. Plug that channel, buddy. Plug that channel. All right, Javi, how about you?
Nope, I just put my plug in. Let's see if I give me a second to put Mike's in.
Okay.
Mike, type something in the chat so I can link your channel there.
That's easy. Oh, I can't. Oh, I'm not in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not in there.
Yeah. Well, it's Miter Mike is his.
Yeah, Miter Mike's Woodshop on YouTube.
Miter Mike's Woodshop. Go look it up. Subscribe. All that good stuff.
Miter Mike's Woodshop. There we go.
There we go.
I found you.
Got it.
And
again, folks, like I mentioned, if it may not matter to you guys that are watching live, but anybody that watches after the fact, I'll put some of the links to the stuff we talked about down in there, the drag chain and all that kind of different things. I'll put links where you can find it easy. Or a lot of the stuff is already over there on the website, and y'all know where that is. Also, check out the Facebook groups. There's a Gatton CNC group, a GarageWorks CNC group, and also there's a Dave Gatton Community Forum that's on my GarageWorks CNC website. All you newbies that, are getting these things and getting them going, get a lot of great information. And basically tech support from fellow users. Because there's no problem you're going to come across that somebody hadn't already done it before. So we got a great bunch of folks, and that's probably what I'm most proud of is folks that are in these groups. So yeah, Raven says, Dave, your tail is wagging. Yeah, Jack's come in here and told me it's time to close out this damn show. He's ready for me to get out of here. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you'll come back next week. And everybody have a great weekend. And we'll see you later. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.